Today we would be talking about the famous poem of Shelley, Ode to the West Wind. Now, this poem is written in the form of ode, and in my previous talks with you, I have talked about what is an ode. Ode is a dignified poem and it has an elevated style. It is in the form of an address. Something or someone is addressed in odes, and it is of course a lyrical, as somewhere it is quite personal also, and it has a very dignified theme. And in this poem, the poet has addressed the west wind. And as the tone is, as I've already said, is very dignified. It is lyrical in nature, and this poem has been a point of critical appreciation, as many authors and many critics have admired this poem, and they have written at length on this poem. Now, for you to begin with, I would first of all try to explain the various lines to you so that it becomes easy for you to understand the poem. And in my next lectures, I would try to reflect upon the various themes or the various ideas through which this poem could be seen. To begin with, I would take some of the lines of the poem and explain them to you. O wild west wind, thou breath of autumn's being, thou from whose unseen presence the leaves dead are driven like ghosts from enchanter fleeing. Now, as we begin, we come to know that west wind is full of the breath of autumn. Now, and it is almost the time of autumn where the leaves are dry, and those from whose presence the leaves dead. The leaves which are already dead, they are driven like ghosts. They are driven just as a ghost is turned away by an enchanter. In the same way, west wind is driving away those dead leaves. Somewhere it is a message, or it is someone who is bringing life back by driving the dead leaves. Yellow and black and pale and hectic red, pestilence stricken multitudes, O thou, O chariotist to the dark wintry bed. Now, these leaves are yellow, black, and pale and hectic red. So all these colors are color, not colors of life, they are colors of death. Something a sort of dance of death is the image of something which is bringing death, or macabre is there. Pestilence is stricken, as if people are dying in multitudes out of some pandemic or something. Oh, though who charioteers to their dark wind. Now, this west wind would take these leaves to their dark bed, and somewhere this dark bed would bring them back to life. The winged seas where they lie, cold and low, each like a corpse within its grave, until thine azure sister of the spring shall blow. Now, all these seeds have been put into the earth, and when spring would come, the blue spring would come, these seeds would come back to life. Her clarion over the dreaming earth, and fill driving sweet buds like flocks to feed in air with living hues and odors plain and hill. Now there would be, now as earlier there were images of color, now there are images of various smells or again colors, and these birds have been compared to flocks who feed, but they feed in air because this is the wind which is blowing them. Then we have these lines: wild spirit which are moving everywhere, destroyer and preserver, here or here. Now, he's saying that this spirit is moving everywhere. The spirit of west wind is moving everywhere, and the west wind has been called destroyer and preserver. Destroyer because somewhere it brings death, somewhere it brings dead, yellow, red, black leaves, and it buries them somewhere in the earth, and it is preserver because it would preserve those seeds and bring them back to life. Now, for next lines: though on whose stream mid the steep skies, loose clouds like earth's decaying, leaves are shed, shook from tangled boughs of heaven and ocean. Now, now there is an image of a tree, and from those trees, these leaves or these clouds are falling. Then he goes from so in the first stanza we come to know that he's talking about west wind and its influence on this earth. Then he talks about west wind, its influence, how it influences the sky, or how what are its activities in the sky. And then in the next lines to come, he would be talking of west wind, which is moving in the sea itself, and how Mediterranean and how Atlantic Ocean is touched by west wind. Then he says the blue Mediterranean where he lay, lulled by the coil of crystalline streams. Now there are so many streams which are clear and which are flowing into Mediterranean. Then he's talking of Atlantic which paves way to the west wind, cleave themselves into chasm, while far below the sea blooms and the oozy woods, which wear the sapless foliage of the ocean, know thy voice, and suddenly grow grey with fear, and tremble and despoils themselves on O here. Now there is a vegetation which is growing in the ocean itself, and this vegetation, on the sound of the west wind, it is just what is happening on land. The leaves are drying, they fall on ground and they're buried. In the same way, the leaves which are there growing in the ocean, they also fall from the small plants, and they decay at the advent of the west wind. And even the great oceans, they have to pave way for this wild west wind which is full of energy. So first he talks about the influence of west wind on earth, then he talks about how skies are influenced by it, then what are the activities in the ocean. Then after covering this wide range, he talks about himself. He says, if I were dead leaf, thou might bear, if I were a swift cloud to fly with thee, a wave to pant beneath thy power and share the impulse and thy strength, on only less free than thou, O uncontrollable, if even I were in my boyhood and could be. Now he talks about those famous lines: oh, lift me as a wave, as a cloud. I fall upon the thorns of life, I bleed. So somewhere he becomes subjective in these last line, but in these lines. And then we have the last stanza where he talks of where he talks about he gives a message to the whole world, where he says, drive my dead thoughts over the universe like withered leaves to quicken a new birth, And by the incantation of this verse, scatter as from an unextinguished hearth, ashes and sparks my words among mankind. Be through my lips to unawakened earth, the trumpet of prophecy of west wind. If winter comes, can spring be farewell? So he ends on a positive note and waits for the spring to come and scatter his own thoughts in this universe.